like, here's the thing. A lot of readers in the book space I was describing, where it's, oh, I want my spicy book. It's, there's the debate of, okay, you want your spicy book, you want your sex scenes, but they try to say, but it isn't porn. And I'm like, but it is. Like, you may have the emotional element to it, or what some authors try to claim is an emotional element. But if you're still reading it for the sexual gratification, then isn't that still porn?
Yeah, I mean, back in the day, it was called porn with plot.
I mean, at least be honest, because it's like, that's not a bad thing, but just be honest about it. And it's when these women try to deny that it's pornographic, that's when I think we get into weird discussions.
Well, that's the double think, right? Porn is bad. Therefore, if I like it, it can't be porn. Therefore, it's not porn.
That's not how the world works.
No, but that's, as well as I do, that's how suburban wine moms who can't be wrong because now they're a mother and mothers know everything.
Oh, God.
And if you're a mother and your escapism is a YA novel, I hope people are self-aware about that. I don't think they are.
Yeah. And just, there is this, like you were talking about, the fear of getting older.
Yeah.
And I think, it used to, I've got too many points I want to say.
I know, I did that earlier, like can only make one point at a time. Yeah.
So it's like, you look at manga and people ask, well, why is all this stuff happening to teenagers? Why are these kids saving the world? And part of it is because, well, one, that's what gets imported to the US. That's what we get translated.
Yeah, all the shonen stuff.
Yeah, we get the teen stuff. We're not getting the young adult and adult stuff. You have to find the fan translations for that. And then, but also you look at Japanese culture, where it's, you have no freedom as an adult, generally. So everything happens in high school because that's the one time you maybe kind of sort of have some freedom. And we see kind of the same thing in YA with this. It's the world when you're a teenager feels so intense. And that's what I believe drew a lot of young adults to these stories of revolution. And then, of course, they grew up and got on Tumblr and online activism. And they even say, like, we grew up reading these stories of revolution and taking on the government. Of course, we turned out to be activists. And I'm like, yeah, but those books aren't good examples of activism. And that's not how activism actually works. But it seems like they still try to. It's the feminists wearing the handmaid's cloaks. And which now we've gotten to the point where I kind of see your point, but back in 2016 it didn't feel quite like we were there yet. But if you're going around doing the Mockingjay salute from Hunger Games at your political activism, or your signs are Harry Potter related, I find that a little immature.
It's kind of missing the point.
Yeah.
Right. I get the symbolism. I mean, when the Guy Fawkes mask became a V for Vendetta thing instead of Guy Fawkes, I was like, oh God, just, I'm going to get on that ship in League of Extraordinary Gentlemen and go to the astral plane with Mina Harker. I can't with this.
Yeah. And that's the thing. It's, again, a lot of these are not good examples of what revolution actually looks like.
Well,
and especially in YA books.
Well, V for Vendetta was one they completely inverted the meaning of the film, and I get why Alan Moore just was like, fuck it, I quit with that. Because the whole idea, the message I took from V for Vendetta is when you have this romantic hero who is inspiring the population with a symbol.
Mm-hmm.
The people are going to make that symbol their own.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't control it. And the world in V for Vendetta actually descends into anarchy, which is the exact opposite of the way it goes in the movie.
Yeah. And
And they artists talk a lot about how disappointing it is when you put out your first few things and people just don't get it.
yeah.
And that I think Alan Moore was saying something there is you have to put something out there prepared that certain people just won't get it, which is why I stan Hideo Kojima, Sam Lake, the guy who did Nier Automata. I never remember the name, Yoko Taro.
Mm-hmm.
Um, People like that who are auteur game makers who just put stuff out. They don't do a bazillion interviews about what it's about. People who are gonna get it are gonna get it. People who don't get it, well, there's plenty else to play. We understand.
Mm-hmm.
And you could claim, I mean, God, Kojima has been misunderstood by pop feminism for ages.
Oh yeah.
That was one of those ones that was kind of funny with the reveal of Quiet from Metal Gear.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody says, oh, she's so sexualized. And it's like, she doesn't have a conventionally attractive face. I'm not so sure about that. I was offended that she was that pale out in the desert sun. Of course, there were reasons for all of that. She breathes through her skin.
yeah.
But it's just, I have this rule that if you want to criticize the marketing, criticize the marketing. That's fine. But you can't criticize the work until it's out. And too many people are putting up these arguments that they think sound good and accusing works of a political agenda when really it's their own political agenda reflected back at them.
Mm-hmm.
And I do think that anybody who's read any books for teens ever, they're gonna be problematic in some way. Because guess what? Your teen years are problematic.
Mm-hmm.
Sarah J. Maas is problematic. Good for her. Good for her, because we gotta start letting more problematic women get out there. Men are allowed to be problematic.
Yeah. And like that's like what I was saying earlier with the problematic people get stuff done.
Yeah.
And that was an evolution of something my boyfriend and I have talked about over the years because he's a historian.
Mm-hmm.
And at one point we were talking about Kubla Khan actually.
Oh wow.
And we were watching Marco Polo at the time, which was a Netflix
Ah.
show, which was about Marco Polo and Kubla Khan's court. And one thing he said was like, you don't become the Khan of Khans by being a good person.
Yeah.
And that was what my boyfriend said. Not
Well,
a line from the show. But
he's right.
that was something that struck me. And it's like, again, going back to a lot of historical figures who got stuff done, it was you don't become Julius Caesar by being a good person. You don't become any of these figures in history, like Queen Elizabeth, even. Most people regard her, Queen Elizabeth I, to be clear, most people regard her as one of the greatest rulers England ever had. She was,
Don't get on her bad side.
well, yes, but like even with her, there were limits because from what we can tell, she was afraid to become her father.
Yeah.
And until you pissed her off. But like she was
Yeah.
very much Henry's daughter.
Oh yeah.
Which, oh God, the irony. I could go off on that one.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of Elizabeth I and the Evil Queen in
yeah.
Boss Fight. Just kind of bitter
Yeah.
and chafing. And this is where the stuff about, oh God, I have to be a symbol, I hate it, in ACOTAR. there is something to the job
Mm-hmm.
that, yes, if you are powerful, you have to check your swing. And the thing, and yes, again, I keep telling myself it's young adult, it's power fantasy, but Feyre is terrifying to me because she's been given all this power, phenomenal cosmic power, and she has the emotional maturity of a 19-year-old.
Yes.
And none of these 500-year-old sexy man fairies are, I mean, I think we're supposed to believe Rysand is considering that, kind of, but I have no idea how you feel sexually attracted to someone who is so very young.
And that's part of the thing is, you know, part of the problem with age gap relationships, and I'm not saying all age gaps are bad, but something
Right.
that has to be considered is, what do you have in common? Because just because you find someone physically attractive doesn't mean you got, and it's not even just, oh, well, we have similar hobbies, but your worldviews are going to be totally different because you're in completely different places of maturity. And that's why there is a difference between a 20-year-old dating a 30-year-old and a 30-year-old dating a 40-year-old.
Right.
It's completely different headspaces.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Well, it's the life stages, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
it, and that's something I don't think enough people consider, but especially, when you get these red pill guys in particular who are like, oh, I want a girl who's 18, 19. And it's like, then you don't want someone you can have a relationship with
That strikes
because,
me as I don't want somebody who's going to challenge me.
oh, yeah, no. Because those girls are usually easily manipulated.
Because they're girls.
Yeah,
They don't have
exactly.
adult brains.
Yeah. It's like, I'm going to quote Galatea, the authentic observer again, is, when she was talking about Andrew Tate at one point, she said, I'm not offended because I'm too old for the creepy man with the camera. I'm I'm offended because I know how he wants to manipulate these
Yep.
young girls.
Yep.
And like that, because the red pill guys like to say, oh, older women just don't like Andrew Tate because they're bitter that they're too old for him and they're not sexy enough. And it's like, no, it's that we are old enough now to know that behavior is predatory.
I think Andrew Tate's deeply closeted gay, personally.
You know what? I would not be shocked.
He reads that. He's trying so hard. And I do think that rampant misogyny and gay, self-hating gay, the Venn diagram may be a circle. I don't
Oh,
know.
oh yeah, no. So many of these red pill guys, because like even like the Fresh and Fit podcast, there's a clip that goes around of them like talking about guys grabbing each other's butts and
Yeah.
cuddling. Which, like, yes, I want guys to be able to express their friendships and be close, but I think that you're telling on yourself a bit. And even like Rollo Tomasi, the rational male, the way he talks about Andrew Tate, I'm like,
Yeah.
honey,
Yeah.
maybe turn off the camera and do some self-reflection for a few
And
minutes.
and this is not saying them being gay is bad. What's
No.
bad is they and that's why all these guys need such control. They so lack self-acceptance
Yeah,
that they need to control everything. See also the Puritans who are why we can't have nice things.
pretty much.
Like the Puritans, I am worried about these kids, as irritating as they are. I am worried about these kids because they do not have the security of adults in their lives going, sit down, you'll get your moment, but sit down and shut up and listen, and then you'll get to talk.
I think part of it also is because there is this messaging online that, like, if you don't say something, you're bad. That,
Yeah,
silence is not accomplishment.
silence is complicity.
Yes, silence is complicit.
Yeah.
which it's like there's stuff I don't talk about online because either one, I don't know enough about it and I don't
Right.
feel like going in to learn about it, and two, I just don't want that stuff on my timeline, so I'm not going to talk about it. And it's like, this is, but I think there is a lot of pressure for some people. They're convinced they have to say something. And it's like,
Yeah.
oh God, no, just, and like you said, sit down, you'll get your turn.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
there's the song Father and Sons by Cat Stevens. It was the song in Guardians of the Galaxy 2
Mm-hmm.
during Yondu's funeral. And I've always really liked that song because it's a father and son at different times of their life, not even going head to head. Like the father is older and he's like, hey, you just kind of need to chill out
Yeah.
and do what will make you happy. And the son is clearly like, no, there's so much going on and I need to do something. And it's like, I think there is a middle that is where maybe you're supposed to come to when listening to that song, is it's like they both have their points and they're both valid, but they're also just coming from such different times of life, one with experience and one with this burning fervor to get things done. And I think if you give in too much to that burning fervor,
Oh, yeah.
you're going to burn yourself out.
Oh, I was that kid. And I do think that at least where I grew up, things were handled much better
Mm-hmm.
in the late 80s, early 90s, because it was think globally, act locally. Yeah, you can be mad about what's going on in the Middle East. You can be mad about back then it was the Africa famine.
Mm-hmm.
You can be mad about that, but you can't do anything directly about that. There are things in your community that you can do something about.
And that's something that frustrates me so much with what I see about activism nowadays, is it is so broad scope. And it's like, okay, but there are things you can do locally. There are ways you could help people around you,
Yeah.
because if you, I've said before, they had a candlelight vigil here where I live when the Russian Ukrainian conflict started.
Mm-hmm.
And I just rolled my eyes because that's so performative, because Putin does not care.
And now look where we are. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it is performative. It's aren't we all good people? Trust me, activism doesn't feel good most of the time. You spend 80% of your time losing.
Mm-hmm.
And true change is incremental. And I don't know who gave these, and it's not fair because this is the opinion of the entire modern left that people have, that they think they can just show up and demand these sweeping changes and they won't be satisfied unless they get absolutely everything they want. We don't know who these people are online. We don't check their credentials. Most of them are acting anonymously. They could be trolls. They could be
Mm-hmm.
imposters for all we know. The real people doing the work recognize that you have to keep failing again and again and again and again and going back again and again and again and again. And I think that what is missing from people's understanding of girl focused media
Mm.
is girls are not socialized to fail in public,
Nope.
right? We're supposed to have our debutante ball and we come out and then we're perfect forever. All the mistakes have to be done behind closed doors. You
Yeah.
laugh behind closed doors, you cry behind closed doors, you fuck up behind closed doors. You must be perfected and angelic in public. And so when you look at Ray that way,
Mm-hmm.
um yeah, you don't see the training because that's supposed to be the character the girls like. And I go back, I really think a big part of the appeal of Sarah J. Maas's stuff
Mhm.
is, women can just tear her apart savagely. There's so much to attack there because how dare she? How dare she be imperfect in public? How dare she put out a book that got a shitty editing pass, which wasn't even her?
Mhm.
And I mean, the way Jen Gao got savaged for She-Hulk, when it wasn't her fault that they were rushed on the effects. It wasn't her
Mhm.
fault that there were huge scheduling issues. It wasn't her fault that everything was crunched. She put out one of the better Disney Plus series for Marvel, which is a low bar. I understand.
I mean, pretty much the only, geez, have I even watched anything beyond Miss Marvel, Hawkeye, and She-Hulk? I think, well, WandaVision, but
The fact that the writer on Loki season 1 got more work, never mind a leg up, holy shit.
ugh. Was that writer male or female?
It was a male writer.
Oh, of course it was.
I mean, talk about, you know, that Sylvie in Loki season 1, the embodiment of what men think women want from representation. It
No.
it was such a miss, and everybody beat up on the character, but someone had to write that. Someone had to cast that. Michael Waldron was the who was another Rick and Morty writer.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah, but he was the creator of the show and head writer of season 1. Female director, but it was the material. It
Mhm.
was the entire concept that just they really need, and let's be real. The men making the decisions are hiring women who are going to do predictable things.
Mhm.
Because if you're unpredictable, if you push back too much, you're out on your ass. Every woman learns that in media, usually after we find ourselves out on our ass the first few times.
And I mean, things are too safe, essentially. And it's like Hollywood want the media, I won't say Hollywood, the media wants things to be safe.
I also think that they're not understanding the idea of representation.
Yeah, no, because they're just seeing people online calling for we want this, we want that. And they're like, okay, well, we have to give them something, but that doesn't mean they know what they're doing or that they're going to do it well. It's just another cash grab.
But also, characters in media are not American Girl dolls. It's not go in and make adult. My generation, it was Cabbage Patch Kids.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it was
Yeah,
funny though. I had the one with the red hair, but my favorite Cabbage Patch doll, they called them the preemies. Oh God, they could never do that now. But they were the bald little freaks. I loved the freaky bald Cabbage Patch Kid dolls.
and like American Girl dolls was exactly my generation.
Yeah, yeah. And but the idea of something that looked like you, there was a My Child toy
Mm-hmm.
that I just thought these were beautiful dolls. They were soft to the
Mm-hmm.
touch and posable, but it was very important to me to have a doll that looked like me because I was so made fun of
Yeah.
as a kid. That's not the same as a character. I mean, Disney princesses, every single one of those Disney princesses had something redeeming about them.
Mm-hmm.
And it was as much their characters that people liked um as the way they looked. And I do think it's very important to have people that look like you on screen,
Mm-hmm.
especially if that's a rare thing. However, when you put the pressure on one character, as they did with Sylvie and Loki, to embody all women everywhere, it's just not possible. You'd never do that to a male character. A male character isn't representation of men. He's an individual.
I mean, I think we do see that in minority characters, not as much anymore, but like I'm
Look,
sure the token black friend is has been a male concept as well as a female.
yeah, well, I mean, that's what I found so fascinating about the reactions to She-Hulk, the revolving door of shitty men. The
Mm-hmm.
girlfriend of the week was a sitcom trope. Like
Mm-hmm.
Frasier had a girlfriend of the week, and Two and a Half Men did it. And
Seinfeld.
and the depictions of women there were not great.
No.
These women tended to be shitty and neurotic and selfish and messed up. And that was normal. One show did the bad date of the week with men, and there was this huge freaking out. And because it was never done before, I don't think it's fair to put on the showrunners that they predicted that whale. The
Yeah.
idea that men would see themselves in the bad dates. I still don't understand that.
Part of it is just hypersensitivity
Well,
at that
the interesting thing is that when I asked them, why don't you see yourself in Daredevil? Well, I can never be him. I was like, why do you think that that's not the exact same relationship women have with a character like, say, Black Widow? Or that's not representation. I can never be her.
Yeah,
Never
no.
mind, Scarlett Johansson can get a tan. But, that it, the fact that everybody is so loaded right now that instead of going, okay, this feels bad, this must be what it's felt like for people who were not centered in media all this time.
Mm-hmm.
It's no, this is attacking me.
No, but like they don't. Too many people don't even comprehend that they have been centered. They're just
No.
so used to it that they think that's how it should be.
Well, that's why my hackles raise whenever they start calling a woman in a game ugly. Because there have been plenty of ugly women in games. Look at the Brood Mothers or all the witches and things like that. Those are ugly characters.
And like, here's the thing, even on one of the last episodes of Two Women Talking from the previous series,
Yeah.
one of the comments we got was they time stamped the point where I was talking about how sometimes I see the way men talk about just the entitlement to beautiful women in their media and just like, no, we should be allowed to see boobs, we should be allowed to see butts, whatever. And when they get too entitled and I see people getting like, just, I deserve this, I'm entitled to this, that's when I start to go, no, get rid of it all, take the pretty things away.
Yeah.
Fuck you. And they time stamped that and said, well, you just spent so many minutes talking about pretty men with golden hair. And I'm like,
not positively.
No. And like, I almost wanted to respond and go, what's your point? Because, like, yes, I like pretty guys. I like Thor. I have a type. But you also don't see me going, DreamWorks should have given me a shirtless Eret scene, darn it. Again, and I also said, when I get that, fuck you, take it all away, you don't deserve this, that's me on a bad day. I said that.
Yeah, you were making it clear that this was an emotional reaction, and I don't understand why people are like, I feel attacked by this. They're allowed that emotional reaction, but you're not allowed yours.
Also, let me be clear, that emotional reaction was to a clip featuring Piers Morgan, the critical drinker, and one other comics guy.
Oh Christ, why would you subject yourself to that?
I don't.
I mean, I shouldn't talk. I watched the Kevin Spacey interview, but holy fucking hell.
I was watching a reaction to it.
Piers Morgan is the Nietzschean fucking abyss, man. Like it's like all the bad shit in British that
Yeah.
just combined in one person.
I watched it because my boyfriend had seen it and he sent it to me so we could talk about it.
Right.
And I'm like, okay, I think he got more of a response than he expected.
It, but you know what? It's true because see this is one of the things of if you want women to be attracted to you back, you gotta be cool, man.
Mm-hmm.
You gotta be cool. Like, you gotta be able to go, you look beautiful tonight, and walk away.
And like that's another thing. I remember early on when we started doing the podcast,
Yeah.
I talked about how there's a difference between an attractive guy giving me a smarmy compliment where it's like clearly trying to find an end to hit on me versus
That
an
happens a lot too.
yeah, but versus like an average looking guy who just gives me a genuine compliment with no expectation.
Yeah.
And we both just go about our day and I get to smile because someone said my outfit looked great. Someone said
Yep.
I was killing it at life.
Yep.
And there is a huge difference between those two things. And even in the comments then, people were like, I don't even remember what they said because this was more than a year ago at this point. But just, saying that that didn't make sense or that I was being unrealistic or whatever.
Unrealistic.
I don't think that's what they said, but just, that I was imposing standards or whatever. And it's
Oh,
like,
these are the guys that don't want any ugly chicks in games. Excuse
yeah,
me. Oh,
no,
yeah.
that's and
That's a
it's the
standard, folks. That's a standard.
yeah, and that's when I start to get to that you don't deserve pretty things if you're gonna act like that. It just and
There's
again, go on.
there's also what's pretty, and it's not just pretty, right? It's pretty and safe.
Mm-hmm.
I've found the conversations I have with people about Stellar Blade were
Oh.
really, really interesting because I'm fortunate enough to know some very, very smart men who are very, very honest with me,
Mm-hmm.
even when it's not politically correct. And I really appreciate that because, they're one of a guy's conversations
Yeah.
kind of things. And one guy actually said the fact that she's so not real looking, the fact that she's a doll is the point. I'm never going to encounter this woman in the real world, not even close. It's safe. And it's like, all right, I understand that. That's resend girl
Exact.
world,
Yeah.
right?
It and like I can respect that.
Yep.
It's just there are some reactions that are just
Yeah. Now,
dehumanizing.
unfortunately, these guys really sell themselves short. They think they're incredibly off-putting to women, and it's not true. They're just very shy. And unfortunately, the gender politics of our modern world don't serve them.
Mm-mm.
Because online dating
Do
has
the
made it.
gender politics of our day serve anyone?
They don't.
No.
They don't, because everybody's too afraid to make the first move,
Mm-hmm.
right? So but I mean, that's been true. It's just getting worse.
Yeah.
The online dating could have made it more egalitarian, but everybody has to keep in mind dating sites are not run by nonprofits.
No.
They're not designed to help you find love. They're designed to make money.
Yeah.
And that's the problem. Is a restaurant is there to serve food, not to make money off a date night. Arcades were created for date night, teenage date night.
Yeah.
Was. And I really think we need to bring more of those back. They're so fucking expensive now. Oh
Yeah.
my God, those Dave and Buster type places?
Oh yeah.
Shit, I haven't been in a while and they are pricey. I went because the one near me has this
Hmm.
carnival game where you throw balls at these clowns that you knock down. And when I'm really, really angry and can't throw things at someone's head, I go and just knock down the clowns. And the last time my husband said, I knocked down one, I thought I'd done pretty well. And I looked over at you and you had decimated the entire bottom row and then half the second row. Because I just hold two balls in my left hand and one ball in my right, and I just pass like a freaking Gatling gun. I'm just whoop, 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 die, clown. It's so cathartic. It's just, I call them the murder clowns, and it works so well. But of course, now there's a bunch of guys out there going, oh, she's unhinged. She's crazy. It's like, can you please fuck off? Because how about judging people the way you want to be judged instead of giving maximum, oh, I have feelings and women don't care about my feelings. How about looking at your own behavior that's completely lacking in empathy?
Yeah. Also, do you care about women's feelings? Do you care about anyone else's feelings?
Well, yeah, but men aren't supposed to care in this worldview, right? Because men are men and women are women and we're inherently different. And so every time I display a masculine behavior, like wanting to whip something at something's head and knock it down, that's too masculine. That's disgusting. That's ugly. That has been my inclination since I was pretty young.
And here's the thing, I get that. And I think there's a lot of women that do. But I feel like instead of feminism letting us embrace that and acknowledge we have those feelings, instead it just insisted even more on putting women on a pedestal and making it like there's we should be allowed to behave badly,
Yes.
but it doesn't
Yeah.
feel like we're actually allowed to behave badly. Except, but we're allowed to be, pardon my French, we're allowed to be bitches.
Yeah.
And we're allowed to be sluts.
Right. But we're not,
But
there's no happy medium.
yeah, we're not actually allowed to be. It's also there's this, the way they want women's anger to manifest doesn't actually feel the way feminine rage feels to me.
Well, it immediately becomes suffering.
Yeah.
Right? Bella in Twilight,
Yeah,
Feyre, Katniss, it's all about their suffering.
Yeah, it's
yeah.
They want the anger to be either raging at the patriarchy or Taylor Swift on stage screaming.
Yeah.
Have you seen that one picture that's going around that's, the embodiment of feminine rage?
I would not want to be Taylor Swift. Like,
no.
I respect the hell out of what she's accomplished. I'd want to be Kelly Clarkson. I don't want to be Taylor Swift.
I can see that. But yeah, so it's
did you see the karaoke thing that went terribly wrong?
No, I did not.
Oh, John Bon Jovi was on the show.
Oh God.
And so she did this thing karaoke because Kelly Clarkson's got an amazing voice.
Oh yeah.
Oh my God.
She was the first American Idol winner for a very good reason.
But I mean, they went very poppy with her with that. She could do R&B, she could do country. The woman's amazing, but she kept blowing the lyrics to this song. And she had to do 4 takes and they recorded because the audience was seeing her fuck up. Right. Yeah. And so they actually played it on the show. And one part she did the scream. She was so frustrated. She just screamed. And I've been there. And oh God, have I taken shit for having that moment. But the thing that was amazing about the Kelly Clarkson brand, they let her have that, but then John Bon Jovi comes on the show after they showed this reel of her completely fucking it up, and he made fun of her gently about it, and she laughed about it, and she says, "Yeah, my learning disability was acting up. Like I just could not get that." And it's like, holy crap, she was allowed to be a whole person and multiple things at once, and she was cute and angry and cool and stupid and clumsy and forgetful and awesome.
Yeah. And it's this depiction of feminine rage, raging at the patriarchy, or just
Yeah.
feral screaming, but not smacking down the murder clowns in an arcade, or
Yeah,
whatever you call them.
Can I go on a soapbox for a minute?
Absolutely.
Okay, it's impossible to rage against the patriarchy.
No.
More and more, I'm trying to figure this out. This is a work in progress. It's half baked. I apologize. It's runny dough right now.
Oh, I do that all the time.
We need another word, because what we're angry about is not the patriarchy.
Mm-mm.
We're angry at the people in our own lives who are crushing our spirits. Can we please fucking own this?
You know what? That's a really good point, because so much of what I see when I see people talk about women's marches and they're doing this activism is it's like, but is this actually going to fix your problem?
Also, okay, you go out and you do activism, and then you read the book about a literal fairy prince man who wasn't a good enough fairy prince man. So you get fairy prince wingman. Like, that is patriarchy, motherfuckers.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, there's never been a high lady. It's only high lord. Oh my fucking God. Like,
yeah. You know what? Here's the thing. Me coming from my conservative background, and I've never called myself a feminist. Nowadays, I certainly don't want to.
Yeah.
But I still consider myself fairly moderate, right-leaning.
Yeah.
I created an egalitarian society where no one is batting an eye at women in power. And
there are places where they do, and there's still casual sexism on the streets and things like that. But it's not Game of Thrones where, oh, this is drama and women get to show how strong they are, railing against the patriarchy. We keep perpetuating this shit.
Why do we have to keep putting that in fantasy? Because again, that was one of the things I specifically wanted to do with Calidus, was a place where you can have Catherine, who walks around, she has a shop selling romance novels and sex toys, and no one bats an eye. Because everyone's like, yeah, no, women are sexual. That's cool.
People kind of go, oh, I wouldn't want my daughter going in that store, but they allow it to exist, which is very realistic.
Yes. Well, I mean, the character in particular you're referring to is Madeline and her parents, which, I mean, one of the things that comes up repeatedly in volume 2 is the idea that men who worship the mother tend to be weird about sex.
Yeah. And
which, it wasn't inspired by the line in House of the Dragon where one of the guys who's an extreme jerk about his ex-girlfriend says, all women are reflections of the mother and deserve respect, except for that one bitch.
Yeah. But that's benevolent sexism. There's a great scene in Calidus Chronicles. You know this, I'm telling the audience, where they sort of do a dinner conversation. Oh, sorry, it was a Catherine scene where they kind of break down benevolent sexism. They never stick a pin in it. I know what it is. I said this. It's like, oh wow, deconstruction of benevolent sexism in romantic fantasy. More, please. I'm making it sound too on the nose. It's not like that, but I appreciated that moment of women who they are worldly enough to go, we do this, it's bullshit, we kind of hate it, thanks.
Yeah. And so it's like, yes, it's there. And again, that whole scene I came up with that, and that whole aspect had been developed before House of the Dragon came out. I want to be clear.
Okay, but it's so much better than House of the Dragon, right? It's
I mean I hope so. But like, so when I heard that line in House of the Dragon, I'm like, no, wait, that's Caspian.
Yeah, the women in House of the Dragon, it has that problem of they just do something inexplicably stupid because mother.
Yeah.
And that just is not how it works. Not every mother will go to the ends of the earth for their kids. Newsflash, most of them won't.
No.
Right.
It's a beautiful story, and
right.
it's a very nice idea, but no, I mean, step back and see how many people have stories of their mother abusing them and hurting them. And you can't blame patriarchy for that. You can't say, oh, well, it's because of how men treat women that, you know, mothers who've been oppressed and, you know, abused in a toxic marriage then hurt their kids. But then that proves that women aren't perfect and motherhood is not as benevolent as some people try to say.